Welcome, everybody, to a new workforce advantage for semi-member companies. We're going to give it a few minutes for folks to continue logging on. We'll probably kick this thing off in another 2 minutes. Thanks for being here, and we'll get things started soon. Thanks. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today at the Semi Foundation. We're very excited and pleased to bring you this webinar to discuss a new workforce advantage for semi-member companies. Specifically, this is focused on registered apprenticeship and Semi Foundation's new group sponsorship as approved by DOL for registered apprenticeships. Want to kind of go over some quick housekeeping items first. We already have over 50 people here. We're expecting over 100, so we're super excited about the participation today and the interest. Today we want to cover a number of different areas, but we mostly want to also hear from folks who have attended or have chosen to attend today. We will be using the Q&A panel. Chat will be disabled. So if you have question and answers, please use the Q&A button on your bottom toolbar. I also would also ask that when you please ask a question, that you state your name, also the organization that you're with. That does not show up in the attendee list. We're excited to kind of go over this presentation and, like I said, get to as many questions as we possibly can. At the end of this presentation, we'll also be sharing an interest form with attendees that folks can fill out. It's a Microsoft form survey to indicate if for those of you that are interested in having a longer conversation with us, and putting in some contact information. We'll take that chance to follow up with you and schedule those conversations, and are excited to meet as many folks as possible that are as passionate about registered apprenticeships in the semiconductor industry as the folks on this call are today. Like I said, this is a very important evolution for the Semi Foundation. We heard from a lot of our member companies over the last 2 or 3 years who had been dabbling in apprenticeships as we served in more of an intermediary role, that there were really some value to have the industry association serve as this group sponsor to help states, to help organizations across multiple states, across multiple occupations, expand their programs as much as possible. And we're going to cover, very briefly, for those of you that are new to apprenticeships, kind of what apprenticeships are and why they matter in the context of semiconductors. We're going to go deep in the weeds to talk about what Semi Foundation's national group sponsorship actually means for companies, for other stakeholders, like institutions of higher education or other workforce intermediaries, and what some of the next steps might be for those of you that are interested. Also, if you interested in using the program, but also kind of what are the next steps for the organization, Semi Foundation, that is, and how we evolve this work as well. So we're excited to kick it off. If we could take us to the next slide, Steve. Um, I want to introduce kind of the team that's presenting. My name is Mike Lavin. I'm the program director for workforce development. Also presenting today is Rob Sanger, our program manager for workforce training and operations. Nick Irigoyen, our project manager for workforce development and apprenticeships, and Scott Ellsworth, who's our consultant on registered apprenticeships. I want to start with Scott specifically, who is a master kind of it's telling the story of registered apprenticeships from the perspective of manufacturers. So, Scott, please take it away and kind of give paint a picture for us about why apprenticeships matter.
Do that, Mike. Thank you. So again, as Mike said, I'm Scott Ellsworth. I've got 30 years in manufacturing. So I understand the pain of manufacturers and quite frankly, understand the challenges that we face on a daily basis trying to get a qualified workforce to do the job for us. And one of the things that you're going to find is that you've probably heard about registered apprenticeship. USDOL about 10 years ago started really putting some funding behind registered apprenticeship. And so it's become all the rage to talk about apprenticeship. And you may or may not have seen the 5 key components of a registered apprenticeship. And those are here on the screen. I'll come back to those in a minute. But really, apprenticeship is not a program. This is not the program of the day. It is also not something that you're just throwing out there and hoping that this is effective. Instead, this is structure that you're wrapping around things that you already have to do today as an employer. Not a single employer who is on this call is going to bring somebody in that knows nothing about the job and just let them go to town on their equipment. I mean, that it's dangerous. It's, scary for us as employers because, you can wreck machines or destroy all kinds of product. That's not what you do. Today, when you bring somebody on board, you provide them training somehow. And typically, in my world, it was always follow Joe around. So I'll stick you with Joe. He's my best guy. You follow him around. He'll teach you what you need to know. That's not structured, and it's very inconsistent. And it also creates people who know more than other people, etc. What you're doing is you're building a highly structured methodology for training people. And that's why these components are there. This is a paid job. You've hired somebody, you've brought them in, and they're going to learn this job, which is where you start today. The next thing is what you do today, which is you have on-the-job learning. Except that you're structuring it. You're giving a list of these are the competencies that somebody needs to know to be fully competent in this job. This is the piece, the third piece is a piece that so often we miss in manufacturing. And that is the why of why you do the things you do. This is the related instruction, the theory, the knowledge, whatever you want to call it. It's the thing that makes it so you understand the process, not just what to do when this happens. This is where you start to engage the full employee. You're going to engage the brain power as well as their muscle. You're asking them, go out and be able to do this, but you're going to understand the process so you can help make the process better. The last 2 components are the things that make it registerable. That is that you pay for skill gain. So you can start somebody out at a lower rate because they don't know anything when they come on board. And as they learn more, you pay them for knowing more. They're worth more to the company, so you pay them more. This is also the place where the employee gets agency in their own training. If I knew exactly what it took to make more money, I would do that, and I would do it very effectively and very quickly. And that's why there's wage progression for skill gain. The last is it results in a nationally recognized credential. In the case of registered apprenticeship, that is called a journey worker certificate. And these are things that you get by being registered. It's a valuable thing that somebody can hang on their wall and be really proud of. But more importantly, it's showing that they have completed a very rigorous and structured program. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about why employers would do this. Occasionally, you're going to hear employers say, well, there's incentive money out there right now. And Rob's going to talk about that. That is not a reason to do registered apprenticeship. The reason to do registered apprenticeship is that you want to have a highly qualified workforce that sticks around, that sees that you have committed to them. And the way that you reduce the turnover is by being committed to those individuals. And they stick around because they see you helping to grow them in your company. They see a pathway. These other things are all things that we want, those industry recognized credentials or increased productivity. If somebody's better trained, they're going to be far more productive. I mean, that's just typical in manufacturing. And then the other is that there is some value in this by being able to tell your clients, hey, we have all of these people who are proven to be highly effective in their job, and they've got documentation to show that. Those are some of the reasons why you use it. I would say, though, the most important reason, and we don't list it here, is that structure, is the making sure that every single individual who has gone through this has the same skill set, has the same knowledge set. They're not all going to be equally as productive or as good as each other because people are different, but they're going to all have the right knowledge and the right skills. So next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about why employers don't do registered apprenticeship. And probably the most common that I hear is just, this is really hard to do. And it feels like it's a lot of burden. There's regulations. The government's going to get up my business. I'm a national company. I've got sites all over the US, and 28 states are state agency states, and 22 are federal states. And now every one of them I've got to do something different in. And so it's confusing to me. And I don't do apprenticeship. I'm a manufacturer. So that's what I do well, and that's what I want to do. Reporting burden, paperwork, tons of paperwork. That's what people think. And then the last is this idea that, I can't do what I want. Somebody's going to make me do something, and I have to do it a certain way. Well, let's look at those things. With regulatory complexity, what we're about to talk to you about, that's gone. You don't have that anymore because we take care of that. Multi-state inconsistency, this is a national program. Gone. Not a problem for you. We take care of that. Reporting burden, this is admin, right? This is the things that you've got to put information in, all of that. National program standards, SEMI Foundation, we've got that. Don't worry about it. And the last is the perceived rigidity. Well, we're going to help you to build the occupation that you want, the way you want it, and we're going to add it to our program. So that's not there anymore. So what we're doing is, as SEMI Foundation, we're taking all of those problems off of your plate. And I'm going to let Rob explain more how he can do that, or how we can do that. Sorry, Rob, I'm going to give you credit for all of
it. All right. Thanks, Scott. That's a great introduction to what apprenticeships are. And once again, my name is Robert Sanger, program manager here in lovely Northern California. I don't know where you're working today, but the gas price today is about 72 and sunny here. So that's what I always think about when I get my gas, the old sunshine tax. So I'm going to frame apprenticeships in the context of our semiconductor industry. And it's an exciting time, right, in the semiconductor industry. New semiconductor plants coming on, especially in Nick's territory in Arizona. But we also have expansion of plants, semiconductor equipment manufacturers like Applied Materials in the Bay Area, and Nokia expansion in the Bay Area. So lots of great opportunities. I think we all agree that we can build the best and most advanced fabs in the United States. We can do it here, but without the skilled people, they're not going to run effectively, right? So over the next several years, our industry will expand at historic levels. At the same time, we're facing one of the largest workforce gaps in the history of the industry as well. So apprenticeships are a great tool we can use now to help close this gap, but we need to scale faster, right? We're not moving at the speed of what the gap's going to be. So that leads me to my group sponsorship designation about this slide, right? So this national group sponsorship, we earned it late last year, ready to launch it now. It positions our industry directly inside the nation's workforce strategy for advanced manufacturing. And our Semi Foundation, Semi have done a lot of work in DC, advocating for our workforce. Mike Glavin's been going to DC a lot, doing the same. And the need is real. The reason is, that the need is real. With these jobs coming back, the U.S. will require more than 170,000 additional semiconductor workers by 2030. So that's a big number. That means a lot of process techs, a lot of maintenance techs, field service teams. That's future supervisors, even facility techs, right? That are going to run these massive fabs. So the designation does mean something critical. Semi Foundation has the authority to design, register, and scale these apprenticeship programs naturally on behalf of you. So it's not just one location at a time or one state at a time. It's nationally. And Scott and I were just talking to, a community college in the Midwest this morning, and that was their reason they were talking to us. They needed to scale quickly. They didn't have time to work with their individual state that had a little bit different process. It would take a lot longer. So the speed is important. It's a big important piece of it. And as an example, the Semi Foundation is already working in partnership with other stakeholders and companies in the Bay Area with their apprenticeship program called SNAP. So we've got Applied Materials, Western Digital, FM Industries, some other companies as well that are in that program. And they work closely with Foothill and Mission College for the RTI, related in technical instruction. And over 50 apprentices have graduated from this effort, and companies are receiving substantial incentives. The graduates themselves are a diverse group of individuals. Some of them were already working at the company, and they moved laterally into this role or moved up into this role, into an apprenticeship role. But many of others didn't know anything about this industry, and they found it through the workforce board and other sources, and they are in the industry now. So now Semi Foundation can successfully scale public-private partnerships like this SNAP program, this apprenticeship program in the Bay Area, and we can do it nationally at a much larger scale and quicker. So this means as an employer, you have a single point of contact for your DOL standards, a faster launch, and Semi Foundation owns the compliance. And that means all the Rapids administration, and we'll also look for incentives along the way. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's go on to the next slide. So what changes? Yeah, what changes for members? Now, it kind of depends if you already have a program or if you don't, or if you're already in the apprenticeship space. If you're not in the apprenticeship space and maybe you want to explore apprenticeships but paused, maybe you thought it was too complex or you just didn't have the time to look into it, now's the time to do it. There are incentives. We have this national program. So the advantages are you don't have to start from scratch. You may have thought you have a technician program you want to get registered, and you look on the USDOL website. It's not real clear how to get started, how to move forward. We'll handle that for you. We've got pre-approved occupations, and we can tweak those a little bit and get you into those occupations and launch quickly. And Nick will go over some of the process of what that would be like to start those different occupations. So now there's no 6-month delay to get back and forth between Department of Labor. We can launch it quickly. The foundation manages all the US DOL requirements and reporting in Rapids. That means your first step doesn't need to be massive, right? You can start smaller because you don't have as much scale involved within starting this program. So you might just want to start with 2 apprentices, 1 department maybe, or 1 partnership with a local community college. And a lot of community colleges that we're working with, if you have a mechatronics program, that's your RTI, related and technical instruction, right there. It's such a great partner, mechatronics or other career technical education programs within the community college. So my advice is just to start small, practical, right? And but start now. Start talking to us now about how these programs can help. And if you already have an existing apprenticeship program, maybe you have standards that are registered with your company or through a community college, you can keep it the same. You don't have to change anything. But you can optionally transfer your USDOL reporting and documentation to our national program. And that's what some companies are talking to us about. Like they started in Arizona or they started in California, but now they want to move to other states. And maybe that's a state only state where, it's harder to transfer. So it's easier to put it in a national program. So you have that consistency across the company. And if people move from one, location to the other as well, it's very easy. Either case, though, you maintain full ownership of your program design and your workforce outcomes. So it's really just about removing the administrative burdens and keeping the program easy to use. So you still hire, you still train, you determine the outcomes. We just handle the compliance infrastructure. So increases your speed, consistency, and most importantly, right, we need to scale. The numbers just aren't scaling fast enough in apprenticeships overall in the non-trade sector. So that's one problem we're definitely trying to solve with this national program. Let's go to next slide. Employer risk is always a factor, right? Let's be honest, employers like to minimize risk. And I was at the California Manufacturers Association for a long time, and that's what we always heard from our advanced manufacturers: want to reduce risk. And many companies believe in apprenticeships, but hesitate because of the complexity or the risk to register. But that fear of risk had been abated by this national program, and this model removes a lot of the friction. So when I think about risk now, I think about every fab. There are, experienced technicians carry decades of knowledge that you just don't want to lose, and you just really rely on, right? And then in every community around those fabs, there are young people, maybe coming out of community college, or maybe they've worked, some technical job, but just don't have a career path. And they need that path, right? So apprenticeships connect those two realities, the experienced technicians and then the new worker who wants a career path. And they preserve that tribal knowledge within the company. They reduce that time to productivity for the employer, and they build a loyalty. And this strengthens communities. So, I have to ask, does that sound like something we need right now in this country? I think we do. We need to build that back, right? There's a lot of loyalty on both sides, the employer side and the employee side, that has been challenged for a good cause, right? So I think this apprenticeship program really addresses a lot of things that we can all agree in our country is a good way forward. And they obviously protect the long-term competitiveness of the industry. So the employer risk to me is really about not engaging with this hidden workforce that lives and works in your community, right? These people they do have the skills, but they do need a little bit of extra training to get in the door. So apprenticeships help to bridge that gap. So let's get started, right, with apprenticeships. And Nick will tell us a little bit about how you would get started with beginning a program.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. And hi, everyone. Nick Irigoyen, workforce development team based out here in Arizona. And I'll start with how things work and the path to implementation for your apprenticeship program. So we'll start with choosing the occupation. So keep in mind, as I'm going through this information, we don't believe in a one size fits all. We start where your need is greatest. We're currently developing a library of existing DOL approved standards and occupations that will be ready to go, but we aren't limited by them. So if your specific occupation isn't currently represented, we will help you add those new occupations. So we basically handle the heavy lifting of registering those standards within the Department of Labor so you can focus on the work. And then there's the hire and selection process. Apprenticeships are both a recruiting tool and a retention strategy. Use the apprenticeship to attract new in that broader talent pool who are looking for those earn and learn pathways. And then internal growth. Don't overlook your current workforce. This is a powerful way to select your internal talent. Upskilling your loyal employees into those higher skill roles. It really rewards performance and closes your skill gaps from within. And then there's the customization side of it, the structured on-the-job training along with the classroom learning. So as a national group sponsor, we provide the framework and you're really providing the flavor to it. So when it comes to the on-the-job training, we help you map out what an expert in that role does, so that someone coming in with no knowledge or experience can learn it systematically. So it's not just shadowing, showing up. It's intentional, and uh, and it's easy to obtain the skill acquisition. And then the related technical instruction, which I mentioned earlier, we support with coordinating the educational component. To ensure it aligns with the hands-on learning, with the on-the-job training, and working with various educational partners or LMS platforms, whatever fits your needs, we're there to support. And then, Steve, can we go to the next slide, please? And then, so occupation and development, what does that look like? So this slide lists current occupations we have in development. Which includes process tech, chem and gas, equipment tech, field service tech, CNC machining, and others as needed. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, as a national sponsor, we develop one set of national program standards. Once these are registered with the U.S. Department of Labor, they're recognized across the country. So with that being said, if a member company has the same need in a different state, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They simply plug into the existing national framework. So there's also consistency in the training. So whether an apprentice is in Arizona or Ohio, they're learning the exact same skills. So this really ensures a predictable quality of output for your workforce. Um, and then because the development is standardized, and Scott mentioned this earlier, they'll obtain that worker certificate, which is recognized nationally, and this creates a more mobile and flexible workforce. And then, Steve, can we go over to the next slide? Thank you, sir. And so as I spoke to the development of these programs, I'll touch on some of the federal incentives that are available to member companies to support the growth and sustainability of these programs. And we can also support you with tapping into these fundings. So currently, through DOL's American Manufacturing Apprenticeship Incentive Fund, employers can receive $3,500 per apprentice. And this applies to new hires, upskilled incumbent workers, and even eligible former apprentices entering in that advanced manufacturing role. And this really is a pay for performance model. So it's base payments that is triggered when an apprentice is officially enrolled in an apprenticeship and it completes a 90-day probationary period. And I'm sure all of you heard the announcement a few months back about the US DOL sharing the 145 million pay for performance initiative. This funding will specifically target those high growth sectors like semiconductors, AI, and will help support when that funding is possible. And then there's the state level funding and tax credits. So federal money is also just the baseline. Most states allow you to stack their funding on top of those federal incentives. In California, we've got 3,500 in state tax credits. Arizona, about 3,000 to 3,500. And then also, we've got a great initiative in partnership with the Arizona Commerce Authority here in Arizona that's highlighting in the growth of apprenticeships, and there's funding available to help support apprenticeships out here in Arizona. So really our role is to track the landscape, whether you're in Arizona like I am, just sweating away, and it's already 100 degrees out here, whether you're in Texas or New York, we really ensure your program is registered and you're aware of these funds. And then that concludes the majority of our presentation. I know we covered a ton of information, all on the national group sponsor, how to build out the program, really a high level overview, and we really want to leave some time for some Q&A. So I'll really open it up for all of you to ask away your questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. So,
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you and Rob and Scott, diving in, super deep on this. Just some quick top level takeaways. You hear from Scott. It's a proven workforce model. It's widely recognized as kind of the gold standard for employee development in the U.S. Uh, Semi's national group sponsorship, really takes this from something that an individual company would need to invest a lot of time and effort to doing, to something that they can just plug into. We remove regulatory and administrative friction. Essentially, we take something that's could be perceived as burdensome and difficult, and make it easy. And finally, there are opportunities for incentives to help maybe cover whatever administrative burden or investment that a company might need to make as well. There are a couple of notes in the chat. If you have questions, please continue to include them into the Q&A tab. We have a couple there already that we'll get to in a second. Then I also wanted to direct everybody's attention to a link in the chat as well. It's an opportunity for those of you all that are on the call that want to have a longer conversation with this team about standing up an apprenticeship program, or want to talk about the apprenticeship program that you currently have. We'd love to hear from you. Please fill out that form and we'll get back to you this week. If you're watching this as a recording and you don't have access to the form, I put Rob's email address in there. So email Rob and we'll make sure that we get you guys connected as well. And with that, I want to start ripping through some of these questions. First question is from Chris. Chris, thank you for your question. Are pre-apprenticeships available through this same model? Curious what everybody else, how everybody else would answer it, but my initial response to that is not really. Pre-apprenticeships are kind of governed a little bit differently. There's a kind of recommended structure nationally, but there are really no regulatory teeth behind it. Oftentimes, those regulatory teeth exist at the state level. Now, what we as a national group sponsor can do is create that bridge from a pre-apprenticeship to a registered apprenticeship program, which is oftentimes kind of one of the defining characteristics of that pre-apprenticeship designation. And so you're going to hear me repeat this a lot, but the answer oftentimes is it depends. And when that's the answer, the next step is to let's have a conversation and maybe talk specifics. Rob, Nick, Scott, anything that you want to add to that question?
The only thing that I would add to that is that, pre-apprenticeship is part of that pathway. But the most important part to a pre-apprenticeship is you've got to have an apprenticeship first. So if it's not part of a pathway to an apprenticeship, it's a pathway to nowhere. So really what you need to do is once you've got the apprenticeship, work with your local high school, CTE, whoever about pre-apprenticeship, but it makes it a really good tool for recruiting.
Thanks, Scott. You want to take that next question too about the length of apprenticeships?
Yeah. So Mindy asks, how long do apprenticeships run? Mindy, that depends upon the occupation. It depends upon what you think it takes to get somebody fully competent in the role. If you're looking at time-based, the minimum amount of time that something has to be is a year. You see apprenticeships all the way up to 5 years. Very few companies anymore are doing that kind of long apprenticeship. But what I would say is this: most of the apprenticeships that we're building are competency-based. And really, it becomes a question of how long does it take somebody to become fully competent in that role. So this would depend upon the occupation, on what you believe that you need for somebody to become fully competent. But again, it's going to be in that 1 to 4 years typically.
Thanks, Scott. The next question is from Lawrence. Lawrence asked, are there incentives at the local level as well? And does Semi Foundation also facilitate these? If we're aware of them, we can certainly help through that process. A lot of kind of what defines incentive eligibility ends up being kind of the work that you do with us on the front end in order to be able to validate that USDOL sponsorship. Sometimes there are local and state nuances that we might need to navigate through that are atypical of the incentive process. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you have something specific in mind, I'd love to hear more about it. and we can figure out a way to make it happen. All right. Are there, any other questions? Looks like we either answered everything that was in the Q&A box over directly via chat or here in the meeting. With that, hearing no other questions, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Mindy asked, getting in the deadline. Thank you, Mindy. So Mindy asked, how long does it take to build an apprentice that we don't yet have? And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but
Hmm.
it depends. Scott, you wanna talk a little bit about this, and
Sure.
Nick and Rob, you can jump in too.
So Mindy, this is dependent really upon how much of this structure you already have. If you if so you, I assume you're talking about an occupation that we don't have as part of our registered apprenticeship program. And so that's really what I'm going to talk to. Um, if you know what the competencies are, and this is frequently the hardest thing for an employer to do, let me sit down and really think through what are the competencies for this job. And that's really where we'll work with you and we'll pull it together and we'll figure it out. The other component is what's the knowledge set? And if you have that defined and you say, I've got this, or I've got a training partner, we're not talking about the classes specifically. We're talking about what's the knowledge, what does somebody need to know? And your training partner can define what's the coursework that goes with that. So it can be very quick because we can do it it's just documenting what you already know, or it can be something that we've got to sit down with your team and really work through and help them to understand what does that mean. Just one side note, frequently I say this because I'm an engineer, I get to make fun of engineers. We'll talk about, you can't be overly complex when it comes to competencies. If the competency is changing a tire, that's a competency. For me as an engineer, the competency for changing a tire might be about 50 different things, finding the wrench, finding the jacking up the car. We don't want to define it at that micro of a level. So we'll help you through that. That's really part of what we do to get that process going.
Thanks, Scott. Um, Another question from James: are there fees associated with their services? Yes, there are. So for every apprentice that we help register, SEMI charges $850 per apprentice per year for that kind of compliance overhead, apprenticeship system maintenance and data kind of documentation. Um, More often than not, though, that ends up getting paid for by the and then some by the available incentives out there. Um, Moving on, Carlton reached out to us about the career fair. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking about. We don't necessarily have any open positions yet available where companies are looking for apprentices, but as those do appear, we would love to be able to broadcast those, wherever they might make sense. Grant asked, generally speaking, knowing that you can create competencies for any role, what is the likelihood that a competency model already exists? I'll say that, for a lot of manufacturing occupations, it's pretty likely, presuming that they're kind of more shop floor roles. The USDOL has done a great job of not only kind of aggregating competency models from existing providers, but also funding organizations like think tanks to build new competency models. But that's not to say that they have a comprehensive coverage over every possible career in the industry. Traditionally, or apprenticeships are focused on occupations that require maybe less than a 4-year degree, but that's starting to change as well. And so it's kind of opening up a number of new opportunities. The design field, in kind of the EDA space is one of those kind of ideas that folks have had recently, like, hey, can we design an apprenticeship around this? So that maybe, would take a little bit more time. But If you have specific occupations that you guys want to talk about, regardless of whether or not we think that their competency model is built for them or not, let's have a conversation about it and see what we can find out from the available resources out there. Anybody else want to add to that question or that answer? Sorry.
I think you
Okay.
did great on that, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Um, So next question is from an anonymous attendee, and thanks everybody for continuing to put these in. We got the time, so we might as well answer them. Within the state of California, there are on-the-job training funds through America's Job Centers. They can also help companies with securing. Oh, it went away. Securing federal work opportunity tax credits. Both programs are focused on creating employment for previously unemployed individuals. Thank you for that tip. Again, another kind of there are a lot of apprenticeship adjacent resources out there, even if they're not necessarily, direct incentives that go from a company. A lot of times, apprenticeships get companies, extra bid points when they're doing, federal contracting work. There are tons of incentives out there. This CHIPS Act had a lot of apprenticeship incentives and requirements around it as well. Next question is, do journey workers or mentors work with apprentices on the job? If so, how are they supported? Um, Scott, why don't you take this? Short answer is yes.
Right. The short answer is yes. And what's so critical is that really what apprenticeship is about is taking knowledge from those people who are fully knowledgeable and competent in your facility and transferring that down to new workers. So yes, they are. How are they supported? This is a place where it's really important that you want to make sure that your mentors are trained. And so we will help you to look for, is there training for those mentors? Are there opportunities for them to learn? Frequently, I know that not every old guy is capable of passing information on to a newer employee. And so you want to make sure that you've given them some of that additional support. So we'll help you to figure out, is there additional support in your area, and look at what it is. We don't provide that support ourselves, but obviously our role is to kind of help that to happen.
Okay. Purvi, do you want to cover the local incentives question too? You brought that one back up. Our colleague Purvi is working behind the scenes to keep our Q&A
Yeah, I would
right
say
together.
that really varies about where you're located. Some localities might have some local incentives. I think in Northern California, there are some workforce development boards that might have some funding that could support apprenticeship programs, but it really depends on what locality you are in. So we could help you research that for sure, but it depends where you're located.
Thanks, Purvi. And there's another question in here anonymously. How is Semi Foundation and these programs funded? Semi Foundation is generally funded by contributions from organizations that want to invest in our work. Semi Foundation is predominantly funded as a 501(c)(3) through state, federal, and other philanthropic organizations operating in the nonprofit space. So that's how we fund this work. But this apprenticeship work also does not kind of fall under one of those specifically grant funded program areas in many ways, which is why that we've attached a fee to this so we can make sure that we're scaling our resources adequately in order to meet the demand of the industry. And with that, I think we've answered all the questions. Um, Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. This has been really great. We appreciate everybody staying on with us. If you have more questions, feel free to fill out the Microsoft form that we've linked in the chat. Um, Otherwise, I'm Mike Lavin, Nick Irigoyen, Scott Ellsworth, Rob Sanger. Feel free to Google us. You can find our email addresses. Guys, if you want to put your email addresses in the chat, I'll put mine in there as well. Please reach out to us, and it's generally our first initial of our first name, our last name, and then semi.org. Um, you heard from everybody that, probably the first step in all of this work is reaching out, um, and starting a conversation. Um, so we appreciate anybody that wants to reach out, and start a conversation. And to answer the last question that Dean just put in the chat, uh, fortunately or unfortunately for your question, we are a manufacturing industry association, and so the predominance of our work focuses on the manufacturing trades. If you're looking for apprenticeship programs in the construction fields related to the construction of fabs, give me a call and I'll put you in touch with some folks that I've worked with in the past. With that, thanks everybody for participating. This has been great. We're super excited to continue this work with everybody, and looking forward to working with all of you in the future. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.